podcast, life skills, okay.
Sorry, I almost forgot it to record. So the internal rate of return, like I said earlier, is the rate of return, which is here the discount rate that will make the NPV from a project to be, that's what we call the internal rate of return. And the internal rate of return is computed by finding the using two different discount rates to discount your cash flow in order to get two different NPV. And based on that NPV, we use our formula for internal rate of return to compute the internal rate of return from the project. We have been using internal rate of return all this while when we're computing cost of redeemable debt. So it's not a new thing. Now, what is the decision rule? That's the only thing we need to learn here. What's the decision rule of internal rate of return? When you have a single project, okay, you want to evaluate a single project based on internal rate of return. What should be your decision? Your decision is going to be that when you compute the internal rate of return and the internal rate of return from the project is greater than the company's cost of capital, we say the project should be accepted. Okay, we say the project should be accepted. If, however, the internal rate of return is lower than the company's cost of capital, then it means the project is not viable. When you are evaluating two or more investments, okay, you're evaluating two or more investments based on internal rate of return, your decision rule is going to be that you accept a project that gives a higher internal rate of return. Okay, number one is, before you can consider a project first, before you can consider whether to accept any of the project, that project must generate internal rate of return that is greater than the company cost of capital. Now, let us assume that you are evaluating 5 different projects now. And out of these 5 different projects, 3 projects are giving you IRR that is higher than the company's cost of capital. So you have to decide on which of these 3 projects to accept, because it means automatically 2 out of the 5 projects does not pass the test of internal rate of return. So those that pass the test of internal rate of return, you now have to choose among them. And for you to choose among those projects now, will now be that you choose the one that has a higher, or the highest internal rate of return over the rest. Okay, the project that has the highest internal rate of return is what we are going to select, provided that the internal rate of return is also higher than the company's cost of capital. So that is the under internal rate of return. I'm not going to waste my time here because this formula is what I've been using all this while. So I won't waste my time explaining that formula. Now, a variant of IRR, okay, a variant of IRR is modified internal rate of return, MIRR. Why do we have MIRR? We have MIRR, which is modified internal rate of return, because of the shortcoming of internal rate of return. And what is the shortcoming of internal rate of return? The shortcoming of internal rate of return is that the computation of internal rate of return is based on the assumption that whatever cash flow, whatever return is being generated from a project, the company will invest it back. You are not putting it in your pocket. When you get any return from your project, you are reinvesting the proceeds back to what? In a profitable investment. And the rate of investment, that is the rate at which you are investing the cash flow, is equal to the company's computed internal rate of return of that project. Let me explain further what I'm saying here. Let me say you have your own cost of capital to be 12%. And you compute internal rate of return to be 15%. The assumption of this internal rate of return is that whatever cash flow you generate from these projects will be reinvested. Okay, will be reinvested at a cost of capital equal to what? Equal to the internal rate of return. Can you see that? That's the assumption of internal rate of return, that whenever you invest in the project and the project gives you cash flow, that cash flow you get from the project, which is your return here, you are reinvesting it at a cost of capital that is equal to the internal rate of return of that particular project. Now look at it now. If you look at cost of capital, your initial cost of capital, and the internal rate of return, under normal circumstance, your internal rate of return must always be higher than what? Cost of capital. Yeah, that's the norm. Your IRR must be greater than your cost of capital. And if we are now saying that when you generate your return, you are reinvesting the return at a cost that is equal to the internal rate of return, what are we saying? It means we are saying the rate at which we are going to reinvest the cash flow is a rate that is higher than the what? The initial cost of capital. And that is not a prudent approach. Is it prudent or a conservative approach rather? Okay, that's not a conservative approach. It's not a conservative approach, because it means that we are saying we reinvest our cash flow at a cost that at a rate that is higher than our own cost of capital. So it is not a realistic assumption. So it's a kind of over optimism. Okay, you are being over optimistic about your return. So it goes against the concept of conservatism, right? Now, for us to address this issue, for us to address the what? This shortcoming of the internal rate of return, we now have modified internal rate of return. We now have modified internal rate of return. The modified internal rate of return is based on the assumption that whatever cash flow you generate from a project, whatever return you generate from a project will be reinvested at a cost of capital that is equal to your initial cost of capital. So if our cost of capital is 12%, like I said here, the assumption of modified internal rate of return is that whatever you are getting from the project you are reinvesting it at 12% instead of what? 15%, as suggested by internal rate of return. So the modified internal rate of return is a conservative approach to project evaluation, and it is consistent with the net present value approach. So when we are making a decision, maybe you have computed a project IRR, you have computed a project modified IRR, and you are now making a position. You are now making a decision as to which of the project to generate. Sometimes the MIRR will be telling you, oh, select project A, and the IRR will be telling you select project B. Which one will follow? You can see that there will be a conflict. Modified internal rate of return is telling you that project A is better, but internal rate of return is telling you that project B is better. The one we are going to follow is modified internal rate of return, because that is the one that is consistent with net present value. Don't forget, the best project evaluation technique is the net present value approach. So any approach that is consistent with the NPV is better over all other approaches. Do we understand this? So you use your modified internal rate of return instead of internal rate of return, because MIRR is better than IRR. It addresses the shortcoming of the IRR approach. That having been said, how do we compute our modified internal rate of return? We can compute our modified internal rate of return using two different formulas. Using either of two formulas, depending on the information you have at your disposal. Now, the first one is this, method one. We can compute our MIRR as PVR over PVI raised to power 1 over n times 1 plus R minus 1. What am I saying here? PVR means the present value of return phase. I represent return. The present value of return phase from the project. Mean that the phases of the project where you are generating positive cash flows, okay? The years, okay, in the project life where you are generating positive cash flows. You add the present value of those phases, then over the present value of the investment phase. The investment phase is where you have to inject funds into that project. So any year that is having a negative cash flow is an investment phase, okay? It's an investment phase. So you get the cash flows of the investment phases, then you divide the present value of the return phase by the present value of the investment phase, raised to power 1 over n. N represents the life of the project. Whatever you get, you multiply by 1 plus R. What is our R rate? Our R is discount rate, the discount rate, your cost of capital, then minus 1. Now, where do you use this? Where is it advisable to use this particular approach? You use this approach when you have already computed your be careful. Sorry. So you use this approach where you have already computed your NPV. You have already computed your NPV. So if you have already computed your NPV, it will be easy for you to get the present value of the return phase and the present value of the investment phase. Do you understand this? For instance, requirement A is compute net present value, and requirement B is compute modified internal rate of return. Since I have already computed my NPV above, it will be easy for me to compute the MIRR because I will already have my present value of the return phase and the present value of the investment phase. Okay. So that is first formula. The second formula is TVR over PVI raised to the power 1 over n minus 1. What is TVR? TVR means terminal value of the return phase. Terminal value of the return phase. How do you get the terminal value of the return phase? You will get the terminal value of the return phase by reinvesting the cash flows you are getting from the project. You reinvest it. Cash flow, any cash flow you are getting from the project, you are reinvesting it. So that at the end of the project, you get what? You get your accumulated return. The accumulated return is what we call terminal value of the investment phase. Oh, sorry, of the return phase. Terminal value of the return phase. You will divide this by the present value of the investment phase. Then raise it to power 1 over n. N is the number of years. Then minus 1. So you can use it if you have not previously computed NPV. Okay? If you have not computed NPV before, you can use this approach. Whether you use this or you use this, you will get exactly the same result. You get exactly the same result. So this is the IRR and the MIRR approach. Now, let's apply this to this question. TISACO. What's the requirement of this question? Required. Provide a reasoned estimate. Provide a reasoned estimate of the cost of capital that TISACO should use to calculate the net present value of the two processes. Include all relevant calculations. B, calculate the internal rate of return, IRR, and the modified internal rate of return, MIRR, for process omega. Given that the IRR and MIRR of process zeta are 26.6% and 23.3% respectively, recommend which process, if any, TISACO should proceed with, and explain your recommendations. So that is the problem before us here that we need to solve. And like I always say, this is another potential examination question that can give you 20 marks. So let's see. TISACO is considering an opportunity to produce an innovative component which, when fitted into motor vehicle engines, will enable them to utilize fuel more efficiently. The component can be manufactured using either process omega or process zeta. Although this is an entirely new line of business, can you see that? It's a diversified project. You can see that statement confirms that. Although this is an entirely new line of business for TISACO, it is of the opinion that developing either process over a period of 4 years and then selling the production rights at the end of 4 years to another company may prove lucrative. The annual after-tax cash flows for each process are as follows. We have process omega, year 0 to 4, after-tax cash flows. We have process zeta, also year 1 to year 0 to 4, and we have the after-tax cash flow, all figures in thousands of dollars. Okay, TISACO has 10,050,000 shares trading at 180 cents each. Each loan has a current value of 3.6 million and an average after-tax cost of debt of 4.5%. TISACO's capital structure is unlikely to change significantly following the investment in either process. Elfuco manufactures electronic parts for cars, including the production of a component similar to the one being considered by TISACO. So what does that mean? Elfuco is our proxy company. Elfuco is our proxy company. Elfuco's equity beta is 1.4. And don't forget, Elfuco is engaged in two different lines of business. Manufacture of electronic parts, that is one. Okay, manufacture of electronic parts is one. For cars. And the second one is what? The second one is the production of a component similar to the one being considered by TISACO. Consider that. These are the two lines of businesses for Elfuco. And we're now told that Elfuco equity beta is 1.4. Now, the implication of this is that this 1.4 is for two different businesses, the electronic parts and the components, because Elfuco is engaged into these businesses. So this is the combined beta. This is the combined beta of the two businesses. And it is estimated that the equivalent equity beta for each other activities. Sorry, excuse me. Go for me. Go away. Sorry. Let's continue. It is estimated that the equivalent equity beta for each other activities, excluding the component. So what is the other activity? The other activity is the manufacturing of what? Of electronic parts. So the portion of the manufacture of the electronic parts is having a beta of what? Beta of 1.25. Can you see that now? Elfuco has 400 million 25-cent shares in issue, trading at 120 cents each. Each debt finance consists of variable rate loan, redeemable in 7 years. The loans paying interest at the rate of at base rate plus 120 basis points have a current value of 96 million. It can be assumed that 80% of Elfuco's debt finance and 75% of
yeah. Take you back. That okay. And 1.25. I just want to be clear about it.
Okay.
That 1.25 is.
You know what this 1.4 represents, Abby?
Yes.
Now, this 1.25 is the equity beta of this business alone.
Okay, that was okay. Do
you understand?
Okay.
So it's for this business alone. For this one.
Okay.
Why this one is what? Is for the two.
Okay.
That's for the two.
Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Chiwe, are you with us? Hope you are with us.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us continue. Elfuco has 100 million 25 cent shares in issue, trading at 120 cents each. Each debt finance consists of variable rate loan, redeemable in 7 years. The loans paying interest at base rate plus 120 basis points have a current value of 96 million. That's the market value of Elfuco debt. It can be assumed that 80% of Elfuco's debt and 75% of EFUCO's equity finance can be attributed to other activities. When we say other activities, now what are we referring to?
Electronic parts for cars.
Exactly. So that electronic part is what we are referring to as other activities. Okay, excluding the component production. Both companies pay annual corporation tax at a rate of 25%. The current base rate is 3.5%, and the market risk premium is estimated at 5.8%. 5.8% required. Provide a reason estimate of the cost of capital that is that cost you use to calculate the net present value of the two processes, including all relevant calculations. Now, how do we approach this? The normal thing you know is that, which I'm very sure of, is the fact that when we are given a question like this, you will obtain the proxy beta B and ungear it, then you regear. That is a simple process you know. Of course, that process is very simple. That everybody can know that. You know that is ungear, regear. However, if you go and ungear this, if you ungear this 1.4, you will only have the asset beta of EFUCO's two activities. Do you understand? You will have asset beta that is for both the manufacture of electronic parts for cars and the components production. So it therefore means that you cannot just ungear this and use it directly. No. After ungearing the total as equity beta of 1.4, you must split that asset beta that you obtain into components and what? And manufacture of electronic parts. And however, the one we need is the one for the component. So if the one we need is the one for the component, it therefore means that I will come to the equity beta of the electronic parts here. I will also ungear it so that I will have the asset beta of the component. I will now remove the asset beta of the component production from the total asset beta of EFUCO to get asset beta of the component. However, when I say remove, it's not just saying asset beta of EFU minus asset beta of the electronic part. No, it does not work that way. We have to use a weighting factor. Look at it. This is the weight we are going to use. The question has told you that it can be assumed that 80% of EFUCO's debt finance and 75% of EFUCO's equity finance. Look at it. This is what I'm saying. What does asset beta measures? Risk associated with only equity. Abi, a company that is financed with only equity. That is what business, which is asset beta measures. So, and the question has already told me that the equity of this company is 75% of what? 75% belongs to the manufacture of electronic parts. So it therefore means that the balance of 25% is for the component. So I will take 75% of the electronic part plus 25% of the asset beta of the component, which I don't know. I will represent it with a letter, maybe X. So it will be 75% of the asset beta of the electronic manufacturing parts plus 25% of X is equal to the total asset beta of EFUCO. That is how to go about it. So that you will now solve for X. That X represents the asset beta of the component. So you cannot go and reject. You cannot go and reject using the percentage given to us. I think we are given. Okay, you now go and reject it to reflect the what? To reflect the debt that belongs to the component and the equity that belongs to the component. Then you compute your cost of equity. You have your cost of debt there. Then you compute your WACC. That is the process. This is not simple on GA reject. And of course, that is why this question is enough for you to earn 20 mark, full 20 mark, full 20 mark. And of course, it is a very likely examination question that you need to take as serious as possible. Now, I've been identifying likely examination question for you. I expected you to have been noting them down. Anyone I tell you this potential examination question, please note it down, work on it very well, but don't cram my solution. If you cram my solution, definitely there will be issue because ICANN will never give you the same figure in that question. You understand? ICANN will never give you the same question, the same figure in that question. So what you need to do is to understand the procedure and you will be fine in the exam. Let us continue. Let us now go and solve this question. Chisako. Let me remove this. I don't need this. That's example what? Nayabi.
Example 9 in the question in the textbook.
Mrs. Chi, are you with us? I've not heard from you.
I'm here, sir.
Okay. Chisako. Mrs. Anja said she's at the governor's house or so. She will join us later. So, hey, what do you say?
You are the one that's supposed to go and join her. Governor's house.
Abio, thank you, Daddy. You didn't invite me now. I don't know why. So, computation of project specific work. Computation of project specific work. So, the first thing is what? What's our beta of equity of, okay, firstly, let's identify our proxy. Our proxy company is Elfuco. That's our proxy company, Elfuco. That's our proxy company. Now, where's the proxy equity beta? Proxy equity beta is 1.4. Am I correct? Or 1.5? 1.4. Now, proxy beta of equity, let me just put it as B, beta of the electronic parts business is 1.25. Is 1.25. Good. Now, I will need to ungear this and also ungear this. You have to ungear the two. So let us ungear. Let's start with beta of FO. Ungear the beta of equity of Elfuco. And J, the beta of equity of FUCO. And what is the formula? We have beta of equity, beta of assets is equal to beta of equity multiplied by market value of equity all over market value of equity plus market value of debt, 1 minus tax. We don't have debt beta. So this is the formula we're going to use. So what is the value of equity of FUCO? Value of equity, we are told, is 400 million shares at 1.2. Don't go and do 400 over 0.25. I think I've told you the principle here, Abby. Hello? Do we know why I'm not going to say 400 over 0.25?
No, sir.
You don't know. I saw a similar question. You forgot it.
Because you are giving the price per.
Now look at it. What we use to judge is this one. Did they say $400 million?
No.
Mm-hmm. So if the client does not tell you $400 million, if there is no monetary value, okay, it's not in monetary value. It means it's number of shares.
Okay.
If it is total nominal value, they will have put dollar there. Okay. So you just pick the 400 and multiply by 1.2. 120 cents is 1.2. Okay. So 400 million times 1.2. That will give us what? 400 times 1.2. That is 480. 480 million. 480 million. Market value of debt, that was given directly as 96 million. Tax rate. What's our tax rate? Tax rate is 25%. 25% is our tax rate. So, therefore, our beta of asset is going to be equal to 1.4 times 480 all over 480 plus 96, 1 minus tax, 1 minus 0.25.
So please, when did you use the 96 million?
Is that?
The 96 million, the value of debt. I'm trying to locate this in the question.
This is the loan,
okay,
paying interest at base rate plus 120 basis points have a current value of 96. Oh, I think we are missing it, Abby. That's not for FUCO. I'm coming. Is that for FUCO? Let's see, so that I will not be using the wrong information. Okay, it's FUCO. Correct. Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay. So 96 million. So we have 1.4 times 480, 1.4 times 480 will give me 672 all over 96 times 0.75 plus 480. That's 552. So beta of asset for FUCO will be 672 over 552, and that is 1.217. 1.217. 1.217. That's the beta of assets. That's the beta of assets of FUCO as a whole. I mean, this beta of assets measure, which risk is it measuring? Measuring, let me put it there. Measuring the business risk of both the electric parts and what? and the component. Don't forget. Do you understand that?
Yes,
Mrs.
sir.
Chair, do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let us continue. Now you will go ahead again and unjail the beta of the electronic parts separately. You unjail it separately. So unjail the beta of equity of the excuse me, of the electric parts. Electric parts. So the same formula, bring it down. Now, what is the market value of equity of the electric parts? And what is the market value of debt of the electric parts? We now go back to the question. The question says that it can be assumed that 80% of EFUCO's debt finance, and 75% of EFUCO equity finance can be attributed to other activities, excluding the component. So I will take 80% of 96 and 75% of 480. So I have 80% times 96 million. That will be equal to what? 0.8 times 96. 76.8, 76.8. While for the component, sorry, for the equity is 75% of 480. Abi? Because 480 is our total equity as computed here. This is our total equity. So 75% of it is attributed to the electric part. So 0.75 times 480 is 360 million. Sign there, 360 million. So our tax rate is still the same, 25% tax rate. So can now conclude that beta of asset is equal to 1.25 times 360 all over 360 plus 76.8 into bracket 1 minus 0.25. Beta of asset is equal to 1.25 times 360. 1.25 times 360 is 450 all over 76.8 times 0.75 plus 360. 417.6. So 450 divided by 417.6 will give me 1.078. That is the beta of asset of the electric part. Now, we know the beta of asset of what do you call it? Of EFUCO. We know the beta of asset of EFUCO's electric part manufacturing. Now we need to determine the beta of assets. Compute the beta of asset of the other components. Now, how do we do this? I will say that let X represent the beta of asset of other components. I'm representing it with X. And the question has already told me, don't forget, beta of asset measures what? Business risk. And business risk is associated with only equity, right? Business risk is associated with only equity. And the question has already told me how my equity is to be split. 75% for electric parts, meaning that 25% for what? For the other component. So that's the weighting factor I'm going to use. Okay. So I will put this formula. Beta of asset of FUCO is equal to 75% of beta of asset of electric parts plus 25% of beta of asset of other components. So beta of assets of FUCO, which is what? What is beta of asset of FUCO? Where do we have that? It's 1.07. No. It's 1.078. What did you complete before? 1.217. So I will have 1.217. That is beta of asset of FUCO to be equal to 0.75 times beta of asset of the electronic, which is electric, 1.078, close the bracket, plus 0.25 beta of asset of other components, X. So I will have 1.217 to be equal to 0.75 times 1.078. That is 0.800. Am I correct? Let me confirm it again. 0.75 times 1.078. So is 0.809 to 3 decimal places plus 0.25x. So if I make x is subject to the formula, I will have 0.25x is equal to 1.217 minus 0.809. So 0.25x is equal to 1.217 minus 0.809. So I have 0.408. So x will be equal to 0.408 all over 0.25. So our x will be equal to 0.408 over 0.25, 1.632. Any question on this? Look at it very well. Any question on this? I've gotten my beta of asset now of the other component that TESACO want to manufacture.
So please hold on. Let me quickly write this.
Oh, Pabi?
No. Oh, no. Just that beta of, yeah, it's okay like that.
Mrs. Chue, did you understand this? Okay, well.
No, sir, I do not understand this. Starting from this measuring the business risk of both electronic parts and the component parts.
From here.
Yes, sir. No, yes. that's on gear the better of the electric part. I did not understand
Amen.
why we had to
You don't understand why?
why we did it like that, using the 75% of no, the 80%, and the 75%.
Because you're not giving us that figure. Look at it. It can be assumed that 80% of EFUSCO debt. What's EFUSCO debt? EFUSCO debt is 96. So it can be assumed that 80% of it is for the electric. Do you understand?
Okay.
And 75% of EFUSCO's equity. What's EFUSCO's equity? EFUSCO equity is 400 times 1.2. So 75% of it is for the electric. Do you understand? That's why we did that way. That's how we said 80% of 96. This 76.8 is for the electric. That is the portion of the debt of EFU that is associated with the electric part. And 75% of equity, which is 360. That is a portion of the equity of EFUSCO that is associated with the electric part. So that is what I will use to get the better of the electric part.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Okay. Okay. And then this last computation.
This one.
Yes, sir.
This one, Abby?
Yes, sir.
Now, let me do this summary here. Let me say better of assets. EFUSCO EFUSCO's better of assets is what? 1.217, Abby? So that's all the computed, Abby?
Yes, 1.217.
Okay. Now, electric parts, better of asset is what? 1.078, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about component, other components? Do we know it?
No, we don't know.
It's not given. It's not given.
So it's not given. Other components, better of asset is not given. So represent it with X. And you know that both the electric part and the component is what make up the activity of EFUSCO, Abi?
Yes, sir.
So the summation of the better of asset of the electric part and the other component better of asset should give us 1.217, because these are the two activities that EFUSCO is doing. It is these two activities that gave rise to this asset beta for EFUSCO.
Okay.
Now, and so, since we know that asset beta measures the risk of what? Equity, Abi? Asset beta measures the risk of equity, right?
Equity, yes, sir.
So, and the equation tells us that 75% of equity is for who? The total equity of EFUSCO is 480. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
25% of the, which is 360, is for what do you call it?
Electric.
For electric.
Electric.
It means the balance
480
minus 360 is what?
360.
120, Abi?
Yes, sir.
120 is for other components.
Yeah.
Now, by proportion, is 75%. This one will be 100%. Abi?
Okay.
This one is 75%.
75.
This one is what?
This one 25%.
This one is 25%. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Now, you will now say that, okay, since the equity, beta of asset measure the risk of equity, and this one's equity is 75% of the total equity of FU. Therefore, the risk of FU here should be 75% of this. Okay? The risk of FU here should comprise 75% of the risk of who? Of electric
parts.
25% of the risk of the other component. So, mathematically, I will say that 75% of 1.078 plus 25% of X equal to 1.217.
Okay.
So that's what I've formulated here, mathematically here.
Okay.
Are we fine now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. So let's continue, Abby. Now, we need to reject. We need to reject the beta of assets of other components, Abby, of other components. We need to reject the beta of assets of other components. Using whose information now? Whose information are we going to use when we are rejecting? I'm not saying 19, no. TISACO now.
Using TISACO information.
At this juncture, the way we get here, we don't have business with FUCO again. We are done with FUCO because this is what we want to get, Abby.
Yes,
we want to get the business risk of the new industry, which is other component.
Yes,
and of course, we have gotten that. So we don't have business with FUCO again.
Okay.
We now go and face TISACO. So to reject, we have beta of equity is equal to beta of assets plus beta of asset minus beta of debt, market value of debt, 1 minus tax rate all over market value of equity, right? So what is the market value of equity? And what is the market value of debt? Let's go and pick that for TISACO now. Let's go to TISACO information. Okay, TISACO has 10,050,000 shares trading at 1.8, Abby. Oh yeah, give me, what should be the market value of the debt, of the equity? What should be the market value of the equity?
Should be 10 million times 1.8.
Good. 10 million times 1.8. What I wanted to confirm is, I wanted to confirm whether you understood the fact that you don't need to divide this one by 0.5. That's why I asked you. Yeah. So good. So we have 10. What happened now? Sorry. What happened? 10 times 1.8. And that gave us 18. So we have 18 million. 18 million. What about the debt? Value of debt. Let's go and see that information as well. Each loan have a current value of 3.6 million. Isn't it? 3.6. So 3.6 million. The tax rate for the two companies are the same. So 25%. Therefore, beta of equity is equal to, what is the beta of asset? 1.632. 1.632 plus 1.632 minus 0, close bracket, times market value of debt, 3.6, 1 minus 0.25 of equity, 18. Beta of equity is equal to 1.632 times 3.6 into bracket 0.75, close the bracket. So beta of equity will be equal to 1.632 plus 0/18 plus 1.632 times, so 3.6 times 0.75 over 18 is giving me 0.15. So beta of equity is equal to 0.15 times 1.632 plus 1.632, and that's 1.877. 1.877. That is the beta of equity. Now, we now need to compute our cost of equity. Cost of equity. Cost of equity is equal to risk-free rate plus beta of equity, market return minus risk-free. So cost of equity is equal to, what's our risk-free rate? What's our risk-free rate? Where do we have that information?
3.5%.
5%. 3.5%. And premium is 5.8.
Yes.
So 3.5% plus 1.877, 5.8%. What's our cost of equity? $1.877 times 5.8 plus 3.5, 14.39, 14.39%. That's our cost of equity. You can see the process. See the process we went through before we got that cost of equity. So if you are not able to interpret, this bit of the question, that is where the problem is. And that is where much of the mark will be allocated. Okay? Much of the mark of that of this question will be on this part of gearing, on gearing and regearing. Now let's compute our cost of debt. Cost of debt. Cost of debt. Cost of debt is equal to, let's see the information of debt that the question gives. Okay. Okay. The loan No, this is Efuku. Oh, okay. They gave us the cost of debt state, Abi. And an average after-tax cost of debt, and it's already after tax. Cost of debt is 4.5 after tax. So we don't need to compute anything. Just put it there. 4.5 after tax. Another problem students will face in this kind of exam is A. Look at it. Whether I have that information. Okay, the loan, this part here, the loan, paying interest at a base rate plus 120 basis points have a current value of 96. Some students will want to use this information by force, but you don't need it. That is why what you need is the principle. That's what you need to know. Some students, they want to use that statement by force. Where do I apply this 120 basis point? Where do I apply this 120 basis point? How do I use it? It's not relevant to what you are doing here. It's not relevant to what you are doing here. Because the cost of debt has already been given to you as 96. Sorry, the market value of debt. The only way you will have needed that information is if the question has given you this one now, this 96, if it had been nominal value of the debt, okay, the nominal value of the debt, and the question now give you the coupon rate on the debt, and now supply you with this information, then you have to go and compute cost of debt and use it to discount the interest and the redemption value to get the market value of the debt. Don't forget we've been doing this, Abi. So that is the only way we will have needed this particular statement. But since the debt value has already been given to us as 96, then I don't need that information. And I won't bother myself interpreting it because it adds no value to my solution. Let us continue. Okay. Let us now compute our WACC. WACC is cost of equity times market value of equity over market value of equity plus market value of debt plus cost of debt times market value of debt all over market value of equity plus market value of debt. So our WACC will be equal to, what's the cost of equity? 40.39% times market value of equity is what? We've gotten it before. Market value of equity 18 all over 18 plus 3.6, which is market value of debt. So this will be the first part of the formula, of the first part of the solution, plus cost of debt, which is 4.5% times market value of debt 3.6 all over 18 plus 3.6. So WACC be equal to 14.39 times 18 is 259.02, 259.02 all over 18 plus 3.6, 21.6 plus 4.5 times 3.6 is 16.2 all over 21.6. So my WACC will be equal to 259.02 plus 16.2 all over 21.6. 12.74%. 12.74%. That is the work that we need to evaluate the proposed investment of TISACO. So look at this very well and let me know if you don't understand. Of course, this part should be simple. The only difficult area is what we have addressed initially up there. Question? Do we have question? No question. Okay, let us. That's requirement A. Now let's go to requirement B. What's requirement B? Calculate the internal rate of return, IRR, and modified internal rate of return, MIRR, for process omega. For process omega. Let's go and compute that. IRR and MIRR for process omega. For process omega. So we have our, let's compute our IRR first, IRR. We have here, 0 to 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, let's go and pick our cash flow.
Which one is process omega in this question? Okay, never mind.
Okay. This omega here. Abi?
Okay, I've seen it. Yeah.
So after tax cash flow, can you give me those figures? Cash flows. After tax cash flows.
Yeah, 0, 3,800.
Okay. $3,800.
Yeah,
Yeah,
1,220.
1,220. Yeah,
Yeah.
2.
1,153.
1,153.
1,386. Yeah,
1,386.
and 3,829.
3,829. Okay. Now, DCF at what percent? DCF at what you have computed there? 12 point what? 12.74%. 1.000. Yeah, 2 will be 1.1, 1.1274 raised to power minus 1. That's a 0.887. 0.887. Raised to power minus 2. 0.787. Raised to power minus 3. 0.698. Raised to power like this. That's why I prefer using table. Raised to power minus 4. 0.619. So what will be our present value? Present value. 3,800 negative 1,220 times 0.887. 1082 1082 0.787 times 1153 907.4. Let's work to the nearest thousand. 907. 1386 times 0.698. 967. 967. Nearest thousand. And this is 3829 times 0.619. 2370. 2370. 2370. So where's the MPV? MPV will be equal to 2370 plus 967 plus 907 plus 1082 minus 3,800. 1526. 1526. 1526. That is our MPV. Then we have to compute another RRR. Assuming, let me assume 20%. Let me assume 20% discount rate. Assuming 20% discount rate, then copy this. Okay, let me shift it down so that I can see it well. 20%. The same. This one will be 1.2 raised to power minus 1. 1.2 raised to power minus 1. 0.833. 833. Raised to power minus 2. 0.694. 0.694 raised to power minus 3. 0.579. 79 raised to power minus 4. 0.482. 0.482. So 1220 times 0.833. 1016. 1016. 1153 times 0.694. 800. 1386 times 0.579. 802. And the last one, 3829 times 0.482. 1846. 1846. So what is the NPV? NPV. NPV is 1846, 1846 plus 802 plus 800 plus 1016 minus 3800, 664. 664. So we can proceed and compute our internal rate of return. What's our lower rate? 12.74%. 12.74% plus NPV at that rate is 1526. 1526 all over 1526 minus 664 into times 20 minus 12.74%. So our internal rate of return will be equal to 12.74% plus 1526 all over. So now 1526 minus 1526, sorry, is, okay, yes, correct. 1526 minus 664, 862 times 20 minus 12.74, 7.26%. Internal rate of return will be equal to 12.74% plus, we now have our 1526 all over 862 times 7.26. That's 12.85%. So IRR is equal to 12.74 plus 12.85, which is 25.59. 25.59% is our internal rate of return. It's our internal rate of return. Now, having computed the internal rate of return, we can proceed and compute our modified internal rate of return, MIRR. MIRR. Now, I told you that if you have computed your NPV already, the NPV at initial discount rate, not the second one, this NPV here is what I go to you, 1526. If you have computed that before, to compute our MIRR, simply put it as, use the first formula. What is first formula? Present value, PV of return phase, PV of return phase, okay, let me put that small r, all over PV of investment phase, raised to power what? Raised to power raised to power how many years? 4. Raised to power, okay, 1/4 rather. Raised to power 1/4 times 1 plus r. Okay, I'm stating the formula. This will be n. 1/n times 1 plus r. Everything here minus 1. So modified internal rate of return is equal to present value of return phase. This is what we mean by this. These are the return phases. So add the present value of this to this to that. So add every NPV, not NPV, is present value, not net present value. So I will have 1082 plus 907 plus 967 plus 2370 plus 2370. We have 5326. 5326. So I have 5326 5326 all over 3800. That's my investment fees. 3800. That's my investment fees. That's my investment fees. Look at it. Where you have negative present value is your investment fees. So raised to power 1/n. 1/4. Our n is 4 years. That's raised to power 4 times 1 plus, what's our cost of capital? Our cost of capital is 0.1274. Please give me 1 minute. Let me sort this boy out. Let us continue. So our cost of capital is 0.1274. That's 12.74%. And close the bracket. MIRR will be equal to, well, let's use our calculator. Let's use our calculator. We have 5326 all over 3800 equal to raised to power 1/4 is 0.25. So raised to power 0.25. We have 1.088. 1.088 times 1.1274. 1.1274. 1.1274. Everything minus 1. Minus 1. So we have our modified internal rate of return to be equal to 1.088 times 1.1274 minus 1 times 100. You have 22.67%. 22.67%. That is the modified internal rate of return. That is the modified internal rate of return. Now, assuming I don't want to use this method, I want to use the second method I told you. How do we go about it? Let me show you. You can see that if you have already computed your NPV, this method is straightforward, is shorter. Now, let's see. Using the second method, using the second method, now, if you want to use the second method, this is how it goes. All the cash flows we have here, all the cash flows we have here, where you have positive inflows, the moment you get, and for you to reinvest it, you are reinvesting it at 12.74, which is your cost of capital. Okay? So, for instance, I invested 3,800 in year 0. In year 1, I got a return of 1,220. I will reinvest it, that is, I will put it in an investment, yielding an interest of what? 12.74%. Now, if I reinvest this one in year 1, how many years will I get my return? I will get return in year 2, I will get return in year 3, I will get return in year 4. So it means for the first year return, 174 raised to power 3, because I will get return for that first year 3 times. Return for year 2. You will reinvest it and get your return in year 3 and in year 2. So that's going to be 1153 times 1.1274 raised to power 2. The return you have for year 3, you will invest it at this discount rate and get return for just 1 year, because you are investing it for just 1 year. So that will be 1386 times 1.1274 raised to power 1. The one you have in year 4, you cannot reinvest it at all, because that is the end of the project's life. So the sum of all your return when you reinvest is what we call the terminal value. So let's see how we do this. Let's see how we do this. Let me go and use my table. Yeah. Okay, I just use this. I have my year. So I have my return this thing. Sorry. Let me add. Okay, and this should be fine. So we have our year here. We have our return here. We have year one. You are not investing year zero because year zero is outflow. You don't invest outflow. You only invest the money you have. It's not your money. It's the money you invest. Abi? So you are not reinvesting it. It's the return you are getting from the project that you are reinvesting. That's why we are not having year zero. So year one return is 1220. So I have year one 1,220 times 1.1274 raised to power raised to power 3. You come to the second year. What is the return for the second year? The return for the second year is 1153. So we have 1153 times 1.1274 raised to power 2. Because you are in the investing for just 2 years. The return for year 3 is 1386. So you come here, 1386 times 1.174 raised to power 2. Sorry?
Raised to power 1. Is it 2?
1.1274. And the last one, the last year return is 3829. So we have 3829 times 1. Because we cannot invest that. That is the last year of the project. So what's going to be our return? What's going to be our return that we're going to get from the reinvestment? What will be the return? The return will not be 1.1274 times, sorry, raised to power 3, raised to power 3 times 1220. We have 1748. 1748. Let's maintain to the nearest thousand. 1724 raised to power 2 times 1153. We have 1585. 1585. Third year, 1.1274 raised to power 1 times 1386. We have 1563. 1563. Then the last one is going to be 3829. 3829. 3829. Now, you now sum everything. What's going to be the total? This total here is what we refer to as terminal value. That's the terminal value of the investment phase. That's the terminal value of the investment phase. So, what's going to be our terminal value? Let us add. So, 1748 plus 1585 plus 1563 plus 3829. That's 8725, 8,725, 8,725. Okay, 8,725. That is our terminal value. That's our terminal value. I now go and use the second formula there. MIRR is equal to terminal value of return phase all over present value of investment phase raised to power 1 over n, everything here minus 1. Now, MIRR will now be equal to, what's wrong with you now? So terminal value of investment phase is 8725, put it there, 8725 all over present value of the investment phase. Look at it. This is our investment. This is our investment here. What is the present value? Present value is 3,800. That's the only investment we have. If you have more than one investment, you will add them together to get the present value. So present value of investment phase here is 3,800. So this one over 3,800 raised to power 1 over 4, everything minus 1. MIRR will now be equal to, well, let's find it now, 8725 all over 3,800 equal to raised to power 0.25. Sorry, it's a malfunction here. So 8725, let me compute it, divided by 3,800. That gives me 2.2296. I now say raised to power 0.25 minus 1. That's times 100. We have 23%, which is approximately equal to what? The one you have under here. So approximately the two must give us the same thing. The reason why we have this one to be 23 exactly is because of all the approximations we did here. So you see that this one is lengthy. This one is lengthy. I only recommend this if you have not computed your NPV before. This one is okay. But if you have computed your NPV before, this one is fine. Okay. So that is how to compute IRR and what? And modify IRR. That's how to compute IRR and modify IRR. Any question on this before we proceed? Any question on this? Any question, please? No question. Okay. Let's go and read the last part of the requirement. The last part of the requirement, given that the IRR and MIRR of process zeta are 26.6 and 23.3 respectively, recommend which process, if any, TISACO should proceed with, and explain your recommendation. So let's see. Let's go and make comparison here. We have a process, MIRR, sorry, let me start with IRR, MIRR. For process omega, what is the IRR? Process omega's IRR is 25.59. 25.59. While the MIRR result is 23. 0.00. For process zeta, we are given that for process zeta is 26.6 and 23.3. 26.6 for IRR, 26.60 for IRR, 23.3, 23.3 for MIRR. So what will be our recommendation? Let's see. Recommendation based on IRR. Recommendation based on MIRR. Now, let's see. If you want to base our recommendation on IRR, which process are you going to select? We select zeta. Based on IRR, we select zeta. Okay, we don't even need to. We don't need to do this one self. We can add it down. We can do it down. We can do it down. We can do our recommendation here. Recommendation. Can do it right here. So based on IRR, which project are you going to select? We select project Zeta because it has the highest IRR. Although the two projects are viable, because our cost of capital is 12.74%, and the two projects generated internal rate of return that are well above our cost of capital. So the two projects are viable. Now we now have to choose the one that will give us the higher IRR. So Zeta will give us the higher IRR. If we want to choose based on, what do you call it? Based on MIRR, what are we going to have? We are still going to have Zeta. Now, let us assume that our MIRR is for omega, let's say it's 25. And for zeta is 23.3. What could have been the recommendation? Based on MIRR, we will have used. Now, there could have been a conflicting recommendation here. Internal rate of return will have suggested that we choose zeta, while MIRR will have suggested we choose what? Omega. In this case, which one will you go for? Are you for the one that is based on IRR, or you are going for the one that is based on MIRR? And like I said earlier, MIRR is consistent with the NPV approach, and NPV is superior to any other project evaluation technique. Therefore, I will choose Omega. Okay, I will choose Omega because I have to base my decision on MIRR, where MIRR and IRR is conflicting, based your decision on MIRR. So now say recommendation. What happened? Mm-hmm. So the IRR and MIRR of process zeta are well above or are higher than the IRR and MIRR of process Omega. Hence, the company should choose process omega, sorry, process zeta. And greater than, because it's 2, and greater than the cost of capital. The cost of capital of TISACO. So that is going to be the recommendation. That is the recommendation. That is the recommendation. Any question on this? Do we have any question? Are we still on this plan? Are we still on this platform? The platform is quiet.
I don't understand the recommendation very well. This is your process. I don't understand the table.
Okay, this one you have it.
No, the table, the process omega zeta, recommendation zeta zeta.
Okay, let's look at the IRR. What is the IRR of process omega? The one we computed is what?
It's 25.59.
Okay. What about for zeta? For zeta is 26 point what?
26.
So based on that, which one are we going to select? Which one is giving you the higher? You see that our cost of capital is 12.74%, Abby. So the IRR of the two projects are greater than our cost of capital. So the two projects are viable. Now, which one is giving us the higher IRR? Process zeta. So we are going to choose process zeta. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
And for MIRR, the MIRR of omega is 23%, while that of zeta is what? 23.3. So based on that, which one are we going to choose? We choose zeta. Do you understand? The IDP this one now, IDP this one is, let me say, if this one is 24, we will have choose what? Omega B.
Yes, omega.
So IRR would have be telling us to choose zeta, and MIRR will be telling us not to choose what? Omega. So which one will you have chosen? You will have based your decision on modified internal rate of return. If there is conflicting recommendation between IRR and MIRR. Did you get that now?
Yes, sir. I get it.
Right. Mrs. Shiwe, any question?
Let me go to first.
Right? Ma?
Let me go to first.
Okay.
Okay.
We meet our next class and we continue from example 10.
Sir, please let me quickly
Example 10. You
the
said?
let's quickly copy the notes, the last notes.
Okay, you have copied it. You see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So next one will be capital rationing in our next class by God grace.
I'm done, sir.
All right, thank you. Have a wonderful night rest.
Thank you, sir.